Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and this is our video for Module 9 for transitional writing. So this week is all about quotations, how we punctuate them, as well as the difference between direct quotes and indirect quotes, and how we give credit to those that we're quoting through attribution information. So first rule to know for this week is a question mark and exclamation point go inside the quotation if they are a part of the quotation. So examples, may I get a drink? Asked the student. Since the student's asking a question, the question mark, including the whole question, including that punctuation, goes inside the quotation marks. Or, we finally won a game! Exclamation point, yelled the pitcher. Since that feeling, that punctuation is showing the excitement of what that person is saying, it is part of that quotation and goes inside the quotation marks. A question mark and exclamation point can go outside the quotation if it applies to the main clause. Example, did the student just ask, may I get a drink? So if it's not part of the quotation, you are quoting what someone else said, and you are just asking for clarification. Did the student ask this? Then in that case, it does not go inside, it goes outside. Another example is going to be block quotations. So in a block quote, if you're writing a longer essay or paper, you are going to need to set these aside. They're different than a regular quote because they are so long. Now, normally you want to avoid having a very long quotation within an essay, but every once in a while you'll have something that is so good, interesting, and or applicable to what you're writing that you really just have to include it or really would like to include it. So when that does happen, you have to do a block quote. So quotations of 40 words or longer require quote block quotations, setting them apart from the rest of the paragraph. And then I have an example. So you'll see today digital cameras have practically taken over photography, as Johnson, 2010, explained. And then what we do is we act like we're starting a new paragraph, we tab over, and then we put in that block quote. And you'll notice that the whole in a block quote, which you might not actually use this semester, but just in the future, you would select all of this and tab it over. So it is a straight line down. You would not indent this as though it's a new paragraph by itself. And then after that block quote, you would then start a new paragraph afterwards. Essentially, you would hit enter as though you're starting a new paragraph and continue with the paragraph that you were writing before the block quote happened. Another thing you'll notice here, which we will use throughout the course, is that they are citing the source that that quote came from. So in the future, when you are including a quote within an essay or a paragraph or something that you write for me or for someone else, you're going to need to tell me the last name of that person and also the year it was published. And typically that shows up in parentheses after the person's last name. Now, more information about what Johnson wrote in 2010 would then show up at the bottom of your paper within your references or your works cited page, depending on what is asked of you. But anyway, I am getting off the subject. I'm talking about attribution this week. Attribution is just giving credit to the person who you're quoting. So attribution is attributing or assigning a quote to a person or group who made the statement. Attribution information includes the author's full name, the credentials that prove that they are an authority on the topic, and the name of the article in quotation marks. I include an example of this. So in the article, High Stakes, author and educational researcher Natalie Johnson states that high-stakes standardized testing has led to a long-term decline in student performance. Now, I just made all of that up for an example. That is not a real article, not a real author, but this would be considered an attribution statement. It is a indirect quote, so there's no actual quotation marks for what she's saying. Indirect meaning that I am paraphrasing what she has said or summarizing what she has said, but not directly quoting her. And I am giving attribution because I have the article it came from, the full name of the author, and then also her credentials, which I put that she's the author, but also an educational researcher, because not just any author. Anyone can be an author, but the fact that she's also an educational researcher shows that she might have more authority in this area in order to be able to quote her or use her as reliable evidence. So this week, we're talking about direct versus indirect quotes. You will have to use this whenever you do your writing assignment this week. So you'll be asked to write either a direct quote or an indirect quote, and then you'll be asked to either include attribution information or not. So direct is an exact quote. Exact quote as the person said it, and the example being, Mom said, always brush your teeth before bed. Indirect. Indirect is repeating what someone else said without quoting them exactly. Again, you're paraphrasing, you're putting it in your own words, or you're just summarizing what someone said, and you do not need quotation marks for that. An example being, Mom said that I should always brush my teeth before bed. I am just recounting things that my mother told me. I am not quoting her exactly, so I do not have to use quotation marks. Quoting something from an article that was quoted from another source. My older sister told me that Mom said I should always brush my teeth before bed. So that's another example of an indirect. So you're either quoting someone indirectly that you heard it from, or you could be quoting somebody else that heard it from somebody else. Either way, it's indirect because it's not being directly said by that person. So the breakdown of this week's assignment, you will be asked to write 3 sentences that are giving either direct or indirect quotes, and some of them you're going to be asked to give attribution to the person saying the quote or not give attribution information. So sentence 1, you're going to write an indirect quotation presenting information from the article. I'll show you the article in a second. So after looking at that article, you're going to give an indirect quote, so not exactly what the person said, you're summarizing, but it has to include attribution information, which means you're telling me a summary of what somebody said and making sure you include who said it, where they said it, and what their credentials are. So if they, if it's former President Barack Obama said that he, is tired of the state of the economy or something. So that would be an indirect quote. And I have given attribution information because I said his name and also his credentials as of what his status was or what his role was that makes us care what he thinks. Sentence 2, write a direct quote. So you will need quotation marks for number 2. A direct quote presenting an opinion from the expert quoted in the article. So you're going to have to find something that was stated by the expert in the article, put that in quotation marks, and you need to explain or tell me who said it, within what article, and what are their credentials. So again, who were they? Why do we care? Are they police chief? Are they a scientist? What gives them their credentials? And then in what article was it said? So if you forget what you need for credentialing, you can scroll up on these notes, and it had a list of the 3 things you need. And then your sentence number 3 is to write another indirect quotation, just like you did in number 1, but this time do not give attribution information. So write an indirect quote presenting information from the article without attribution information. That means you are going to tell me the gist of what somebody said or an opinion that someone held in the article, but you will not tell me the name of the person, you won't tell me the article it's from, and you won't tell me their credentials. And I think the purpose of sentence 3 is just to make sure you understand what attribution information is and what it means if it was missing. So that is your assignment for this week. As you look at this week, you'll see the notes for this week. Optional practice, if you'd like to go through this before you take your grammar quiz, it might be helpful because the grammar quiz is over quotation marks. And then you are going to go to this online article. So click to the online article. You will read through this. And this is the article that you're using to complete your assignment that was asking for the direct and indirect quotes with or without attribution information. The only other thing that you are doing this week, only 2 other things you're doing this week. So one is your assignment where, again, you are doing this, a sentence that has a indirect quote with attribution, a sentence with a direct quote with attribution, and an indirect quote without attribution. And then you will submit that as your writing assignment for this week. You will also complete the grammar quiz this week over quotation marks. And again, there is an optional practice quiz that I made up here if you'd like to go through that and just make sure that you feel confident before you take that quiz, because I know this semester we are limited to how many times we can let you take those quizzes. Then finally, you are doing the discussion board, discussion number 4, direct quotation practice with peer review. All you're doing here, you're referring to that same article that you're using for your assignment. You're going to look through the article and you're going to answer these 5 questions. So your discussion board post is just going to be the answer to these 5 questions. So you can just even make a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each one. Tell me what the answer is to these questions based on what you found in the article. And then your responses to classmates is pretty simple this week, because all you have to do is look at what their answers were and either reassure them that they are correct or let them know, I would maybe look back at number 3 because I found a different answer. So discussion board, look at the article, answer the 5 questions for your initial post, and then respond to at least 2 classmates, letting them know that you have checked their work and they are correct, or that they got something incorrect. So 3 things: discussion board and your responses to 2 classmates, grammar exercise or quiz, and your writing assignment, which is really just 3 sentences, and it is all based